Victoria and start doing something, because if you are familiar with Tilikum, he actually first got collected and moved to Victoria to start his captive aquarium life. So I'm also the founder of Ocean Walls, the CEO I call myself. I created an exhibit, a model based on my 25 years of experience with aquariums, and see if we could do something different for the public, if we could actually engage them on a large scale to deliver that same education and awareness message without the captivity and the cruelty to the animals that, in my opinion, now is no longer worth it if we're not actually helping the wild animals. This is why we all love the wild here. This is actually just taken back a few days ago off Victoria. This is a bunch of transient killer whales. So this was a trip that Rita and I did on my birthday to get ready for coming down here. And as you can all imagine, this is the real reason what the wild looks like. And we were blessed to be generated that. Why I brought this up, one, it's beautiful, it just happened a few days ago. It gives you a chance to see the wild, why we love the Pacific Northwest, but also gives you the new model that's also evolving, which is wild whale watching industry, which I actually find quite interesting to discuss with them and work with them, because they have the same kind of complications that the captive industry is facing as well. A lot of people are upset at whale watching companies. A lot of the locals are putting up strong resistance against them, and it's creating the same kind of conflict. So it seems whenever we evolve or do better for the whales, we always create divisions. And that's why I decided to get more vocal, because I understand a lot of the aspects from all parties based on my past, and said, how can we get everyone together and start doing something a bit better and actually think about the whales? So Blackfish, we're all familiar with Blackfish. CNN. To date, I estimate there are over 35 million based on some stats that I have seen. Time Magazine saying that SeaWorld's profits dropped 84%, and over 1 million Blackfish tags. That's quite a substantial amount of social integration that's happened for this movie. To be honest, it affected me as well, of course. What did this movie do? And I watched at first ideology develop of Tilikum being a killer. And it is a bit of a concern I've had since I've worked so closely with him, that some people out there now are actually more believe that killer whales are really killers. And so I think it's time that we do more than what the movie's done. And yes, the movie's educated, and the movie has made tons of people aware of this issue, but we still here are 6 years later. And if we look at the captive aquarium industry over the 6 years of all this attention, we do see some highlights of breeding programs being stopped and some exports being stopped. But comparable to what's happened over the whole industry for 25 years, I still think there's lots of room for improvement that we need to start developing here. So this is why I started talking. Truth is not silent. Tilikum definitely showed us all that. He made everyone wake up and pay attention to what he had to say. And that is so true in this industry. More truth of this industry does need to come up. That's why I think Blackfish was so important, because it brought the truth to the public. But it's something we all knew. The original time Tilikum killed a friend of mine in Victoria, we all knew he was a killer. We all knew he was dangerous, but he's not crazy. It's the situation that we put them in, the pressures that we put them in, and the lack of choices that they have that cause them to be so frustrated at us to lash out. And so he's driven all of us to be a little bit wiser in what we're doing, including myself. And this is why I'm here again. As I said, I'm going to be seeing him tomorrow.
The management?
I'm just going to pause that. This video is Tilikum in the module. It was shared by Tilikum. I was actually in this module with him when this film was being taken. This is with Jim McBain. It's not Jim McBain's voice, but Jim McBain's the vet that take it. And I was in the module when this was being taken to move Tilikum around in order to show everyone the the aspects of it. If you've never seen the module, this is a good video to watch it.
May be serious. The medical pool is 31 feet long, 23 feet wide, and 12 feet deep. Tilikum is 20 feet long. Tilikum's stay in the medical pool severely restricts his ability to exercise, since the pool is only slightly larger than the whale itself. A prolonged stay of the male in the medical pool may also likely lead to the development of serious medical problems.
That's something we knew long time ago. In the videos I've been seeing at Tilikum, spending time in the holding pools, and other whales still spending in holding pools, this is still activity that happens to these animals far more often than it should, and we all need to be more conscious of that and affected. But why I want to share you stories from the module so that you learn that Tilikum isn't just a crazy killer. I spent a lot of time with Tilikum in this module. He used to get locked up there at 5 o'clock in the evening, and he would be let out at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now before that, actually Haida, Nuket, and Tilikum all would be locked up into that metal pool. This is a net connected to a net pool at Sealand in the Pacific, and this steel structure was designed to keep the whales safe at night because of the investment. I'm not sure if you're aware, but a wild killer whale is worth $5 million in today's current market, so there is a lot of substantial investment involved in these animals, and unfortunately some parks do take time. In its day, it was a revolutionary module because it actually lifts the whales out of the floor. So you can imagine a net pool, it's very difficult to net the animals. The old ways of doing medicals with whales was to physically lift them out of the water with cranes, hold their tails up, take the blood and everything. The modules started being developed to lift these animals out of the water safely so that we could work with them. And over time, we started developing trained behaviors that could serve the same purposes. So this was a very important area of it. And I know it's very hard to see a whale net, and you have to understand some of the animal management aspects of this. I grew up as a cowboy, and so it's not a hard decision. It was a hard decision to want to keep animals in captivity. I do love animals, but it is similar to putting them in a shelter at night. Now, unfortunately, these animals shouldn't be in a shelter at night, but so you understand some of the mentality of it. It's important that you understand the important aspects of all management of these animals. These animals are very large and they can be very dangerous, and we need to do everything possible to make it humane. This was not humane. The amount of time that he spent in there was not humane. Unfortunately, due to the birth of the two babies at the same time, he did have to spend a lot of time in here in order for them, the babies, to grow up to be safe. One calf didn't make it, but I want to share some stories of that. Out of all that,
Included among the potential problems are inadequate respiratory exchange and respiratory
just fill that out. Here, it's the movie.
muscle atrophy, and scoliosis. In addition, Tilikum could refuse food. This would
He actually just
complicate
ate their
problems
removal.
which might arise or create its own health problems.
So if you remember, that said it was 12 feet deep. So that's twice a week. So he would spend his whole night there and just rest. And in the morning, he would be very eager to get out. And some days, actually, he would be very eager to go in, depending on the social settings within the pool. Some days we had to use food. We had to withdraw food in order for him to be hungry enough to go into it as well. Not a very good thing, but a lot of cool stories happened there with me personally. And this is why I wanted to start talking, so that people understand, yes, it's cruel. Yes, it's wrong what we're doing. I admit it's wrong. It's wrong what I was doing. I was catching animals, shipping them all around the world. We did it because we believed we were educating the mass. Over 100 million people go to zoos and aquariums in the world. You would think by now we would be able to solve every species' problems, but we're still not doing it, so there's something more to it. So I wanted to tell you conversations through the eye of an orca, through Tilikum's eye. In that module, I would spend hours with him scrubbing his dorsal fin. If you know killer whales, their skin is constantly being renewed. And so that fin, where it curves, can't get scratched. And I would spend a lot of time scratching underneath his dorsal fin, getting his black skin underneath my nails. And I tell you what, he would look at me like any dog would getting a massage. He would look at me with his eye, glaring back at me, happy as he could be, and happy as I could feel he could be. I'm not going to say he was happy, but I do know when Tilikum was upset. I saw Tilikum upset enough to know that at that time that I was scratching his fin, he was happy. And that's important to understand, that these animals in any condition do adapt. My concern with Blackfish and some other talks that came after was this resound that Tilikum's crazy, and that Captivity makes them so crazy, they're just going to go out and kill everyone. As long as we have that mentality, there will be no way animals like Tilikum or his offspring will ever get a chance to go out into sea pens or into the wild, just simply because of the liability. If everyone's going to assume these animals are going to go out into the wild and cause harm, as Luna did up in Canada, if you know that story, there was a wild killer whale that got lost from its pod and ended up in this bay in Gold River and started taking off little pieces of boats and started hanging around with the whole people and created a big problem up there. And the animal eventually died, being sucked into a tugboat, into a jet engine of a tugboat. And so these animals are curious. They do want to establish relationships with us when they have to. I'm not sure they would go out of their way in the wild to ever want to have a relationship with us, but inside captivity they do. Tilikum and I did have a relationship scrubbing his dorsal. There's a bond there that you get and a trust that you get, that you can actually trust this animal that has killed, and he wants to get that itch scratched. I don't need to go into the whole idea of the dorsal fin aspect. Does everyone know why the curved dorsal fin? Anyone not know? Maybe? Why the fin does curve? Okay. It's amazing how much that question is still coming out in the public. But so, Tilikum. I love this brochure that had Tilikum, friend, outcast, killer. Tilikum was my friend. You all need to answer to yourselves what friendship means to us. It means no matter what you're doing, whether it's entertainment, whether it's awareness, whether it's activism, whether it's education or research, we have to know what your itch, what are you trying to solve here? And you have to make sure that what you're trying to solve here is in the best interests of the animals, more than above yourself, more than above the principle of what we're working for, but truly for the betterment of these animals. As long as these debates stay within small confines, we will never get these animals to the level that I believe that they can explore. Keiko was a great example of what started, and more of that can happen. It happens with hundreds of species, and killer whales for some reason are never allowed to have this ability to show us how much they know of the wild. And I think that's what we really need to work here. That's what I had to do. I had to go with what my itch was. Probably all want to know, why would I go out and catch dolphins and ship them all around the world? Why would I catch whales? Why would I train them? Why would I keep them in pools? Why would I lock them up at night? All very excellent questions. And I did it because I was taught, and I believed that we were helping the wild, that all these public was going to go out into the wild and educate and make the wild better. And what I learned is that actually the public thinks we're doing that. And all the money that we're spending on the pools and the chlorine and the trainers and the food actually doesn't allow us to go out into the wild nearly as much as we do. I moved some dolphins to a pool that was $200 million. They figure the Pacific Northwest needs $80 million to restore all the salmon habitats back for the killer whales. Sort of shows you the imbalance that we're facing. And in order to get out to that imbalance, to get people excited, do you know why they can build a $200 million pool? Because they get enough people coming into that pool to pay for it. And so we have to shift that mentality of the mass. And we have to do that by working together and by putting the whales first and by making people understand that they are emotional and that they do have more emotions than just being killer and crazy. Another great story in the module, that steel broom, you imagine it's set 23 feet round. It has some windows, some portables in the module to allow the water flow in there. And when we were feeding Tilikum at night, he would eat 40 to 60 pounds of fish. not sure if you ever know how much that is, but that's about 6 buckets of herring full. That's how much we would feed him when he went back into the module. And we feed him large salmon as well. And if you've ever been up to the Pacific Northwest, you can see how large our salmon get. And Tilikum loves salmon. It's one thing I always want to give him back again is a big salmon, because he always would stick it out of his mouth, and he likes to bite the tail bone. And you could hear him just crunch all the bones of the tail, and then he would eat it. It was an amazing thing. And at night, I would feed them in a module. And he started developing this game where he would hold a salmon, and he would drop it at the surface of the water, and he would sink down to the bottom. It's only 12 feet, but he would sink down around one of these portholes, and he would wait for this seal. Now, this seal was actually a rescued seal. This is the irony of our industry, is that we actually throw harbor seals into the wild pretty quickly. California sea lions we put into the wild pretty quickly as well. And these animals always show us how tame they really can be, and how much they can teach us from the wild by just being in the wild. So I always find it ironic we don't think we can do that with whales or cetaceans yet. And so he would go down to the bottom, and Kelpie would stick his head out into this porthole until he would put his entire mouth around the porthole and wait for Kelpie to watch this salmon fall down. And once in a while, Kelpie would grab this salmon, and he would grab the salmon and swim back out in that porthole, and Tilikum would go look at it. And for years, I never understood what Tilikum was really doing. You know, was he baiting? Was he playing? Was he feeding? Was it a game? Was it companionship? I have no idea to this day. Now, part of me thinks he might have been baiting for feeding. But no matter what he was doing, he was establishing a relationship in his environment. He was actually manipulating his environment for his gain. Whether that be a mental gain, whether that be a physiological gain for food, whatever it was, he was manipulating that small, tiny space that everyone around in the world, and I agree it's not the best place for an animal, but inside that module, he was establishing relationships with other species and with myself. Throughout this presentation, I hope you just take back Tilikum's not a killer, he's not crazy. And we got to move past that part with the public, and we got to understand that we have to take responsibility for what he did, not him. Again, the outcast. Is he asking the seal to eat it? Is he that manipulative that he's setting us up? He's knocked me down off stage many times during the shows. He is very powerful. He is very intelligent. But what makes him go over that last little bit? Is he an outcast? Is he someone that you can't trust? Kelpie could trust him. Kelpie would continue to come to that module every day to play that game, just hoping once in a while he would get his salmon. And that's important that we understand these animals have dynamic relationships within these confinements that we have to explore on. I'm not justifying captivity here. Please do not leave here thinking I'm saying captivity is great. What I'm saying is captivity has enough information there that we can take it and apply it to the wild. And there's enough of us from that industry that wants to and is willing to do it. They're just not all willing to head out to the public and get crucified through activism or through the PR or through the media. But there's a great opportunity if we start getting more organized and more focused and telling these small little significant events in these animals' lives that show that they're way more intelligent than we ever give them credit for. They understand way more about their environment than we even understand. And they have something to teach us about captivity, teaching us about our own captivity. These last 6 years, I had to have a hard question of what I did. And I had to relate and question and ponder and really believe why. What is my aim? What is my purpose here? What am I doing this? Am I doing it just for catching the animals? Am I doing it because I love working with marine mammals? It's a fun job, people. These animals are amazing. But it's not worth their sacrifice if we can't look after them in the wild. And it's not worth their sacrifice if they're still in captivity wondering if they're going to kill us.
Chris, can I interject something?
Sure.
I work with lions and tigers in the sanctuary. And
Yeah.
we prey animals know they're prey animals.
Yeah.
The seal coming to the killer whale. So obviously there was a symbiotic relationship that the two established on some level that we will never understand. And the reason I say this is we have a tiger at our sanctuary. His name's Norman. Our sanctuary, all of our cats have between 2 and 3 acre enclosures. They're not in the required 12 by 24 foot cage. They're actually allowed to do some movement like you do what you can for these animals. Norman lays on his bench and there's a squirrel that comes and sees Norman, especially this time of year because we get a lot of pumpkins donated and the cats tear the pumpkins up so the seeds are laying around their enclosures and the squirrels come and eat them. Norman will lay there and this squirrel will literally run over Norman, run over to his face, stop and look at it. Norman will look up at him and then keep going, and he's not scared of that cat. What's this tiger?
Exactly.
And I keep saying to the squirrel, "You're messing with a tiger." And Norman's like, "I'm not gonna." So that
They know animals do.
the squirrel's prey. It sees a cat, it's gonna run. So it just, when you said that about that, there's a symbiotic relationship that we'll never get. We'll never get it.
And it's the symbiotic relationship you see with whales with seagulls, if you watch that, whether that's eating or whether it's there. You know, these animals, Kelpie was actually hand-reared. So Kelpie was actually very friendly seal, and the Oak Bay Merino was actually where he grew up. So he did hang out, but he definitely, you know, they do have the symbiotic, and they know, and that these are all the things that we can learn from them beyond the show, beyond if it's wrong in the poo or not. There's tons of information we know from them, tons. You just have to observe them, and you could actually learn a lot from them just by simply watching them.
And just to confirm, the dorsal fin is like bent because they're depressed, right?
Actually, it's the confinement to the pool. So it's connective tissue, like our nose and our ears and that. And so the pressure, the best way I heard it was actually on this whale tour. Actually, after 25 years answering this question, this guy says it's like holding a bucket of water, and 2 buckets of water in both your hands, right? You feel the weight of that water. Well, that's what happens in the fin. In the wild, the water weight keeps that fin up straight. So when they're traveling straight and going far. So when you see a killer whale attack, you actually see their dorsal fin quiver. It's actually, they don't have any physical control. They can't get happy and pop it up. And they can't actually move it left or right. It just sort of does what it wants. So when they're really aggressive and attacking or playing rough, you actually see it quiver because it just can't get that support of the water. But in captivity, because they just keep turning over the same way, what they do is they develop swimming patterns of the same turning. You know, they don't say, "Oh, I better swim left this way and right this way so I can keep my fin." They get into groups, pattern swimming, and they just start swimming, turning over the same way, turning over the same way, and turning over the same way. So as the fin grows. Later on, you'll see video of Haida and Nuka, and they actually, their fin grew, flopped the other way than Tilikum's. It did. So and then Haida later on in Florida, in Texas, before she died, had pretty well up close to it. I wouldn't say it was perfect fin, but definitely a lot better than you. Actually, it's this video here. Anyone know? I don't even know how to pronounce that, so I'm not going to try. It's from my region. Anyone know who that is? That's Tilikum's son. So Tilikum's son, actually, I watched him be born December 24th. Tilikum was in that module, and I think it was 1991. This baby was born. You can actually see the baby. This is very old footage. There's not much sound and everything there. You can see the little baby. You see that's Haida in the right, Nick on the left. Their fins curved to the left, Tilikum's curved to the right. And you see a little baby here. Something in there. That calf was nursing that entire time. So when you hear all the stories of what was bad and wrong, those both animals had babies in that pool. And with all those extreme concurrences, they both had babies. Nuka actually, her calf didn't make it. It looked like she had I'm not sure the technical term, so I'll just do my best. It was twins. Her uterus passed, her placenta passed, and you can see that it was twins. One calf wasn't there, the other calf wasn't very strong. And we actually observed it almost looked like drowning. So I'm not exactly sure what the motivation was. Is it something that I've seen with captive dolphins as well? Is it something of a understanding, or is it something of a, come on, get stronger? I'm not sure what it was. But that calf was born here. And I'm not sure if you know what his little calf did, but 2004, let's just finish that. 2004, this is Tilikum's son doing water work, and that is not water work. That's aggression, and that's an attack. I definitely don't want to whale him. You can see his fin quite straight there. So the reason I bring that up is because, again, of the last module story that I'd like to share with you here is when we had to move that baby. And we had to net all of them and put them into that module. So you can imagine having 3 kilo adults and a baby that was just born, never really spent any time with us humans. And when we had to finally get the okay, that video you watched earlier with Tilikum being moved was an application for that Tilikum to get emergency evac from Canada and shipped to Florida. Now this is why I started speaking loud, because I've dealt with a lot of activism based on my past work. Animals do get apart and do get affected by us when we humans fight. They get caught up in the paperwork, they get caught up in the logistics, they get caught up in the legality, they get caught up in the bureaucracy. And you're dealing with corporations, and you're dealing with people that have a lot of money heavily invested in what they're doing here. It's not fair for the animals. This is what I'm about to do in this next year talking, is making sure these animals no longer get caught up into this fight between activism, conservation, and entertainment and education. It's not fair for them. And we all need to make sure that these animals that are within the system are looked after in the most public manner that we can, so that we do understand when we move them what's going to happen. We do understand. We cannot be advocating animals to be released and still saying that animals cannot be transported without dying. In order for us to move Lolita, in order for us to move Tilikum's offspring, in order for us to move any cetacean to be released, it's going to need to be transported. These all little facts and significant events need to be clear. We have to stop getting animals like Hucot caught up in the middle. This calf got caught up in the middle because there was a big fight about whether Tilikum should be moved or not. I'm not going to get into if it was right or wrong he was there or any of it. At the end of the day, that little calf got put into that little module. He had to be closed in there, and we had to emergency lift him and Tilikum and beach them. And Tilikum was very upset, and his last days of saying goodbye to his son was chomping his mouth and very upset. The calf is doing well. We see that now. Has a curved fin just like Dad. That's not so well. But at the end of the day, these stories and these understandings of these animals have to be made available so that we learn from them and that we ensure that these animals don't get caught up in those situations just because some of us are scared that an activist might show up and take some photos, or alternatively, that some activists get too loud and too concerned at a move that might put an animal in harm's way.
Well, when you first were talking about this, did you mean that they can emotionally sense the tension, or yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so then that negatively affects.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No, for sure. And my theory on Tilikum's last, if you know anything about his past, this was his most violent attack. And that would be because he would have a sense of exactly what would happen. He's already been beached here umpteen years in that module. He got beached here with his son. He got shipped overseas. He got beached on both of the first attacks. Or the first attack he didn't get beached, but the second attack he got beached in order to remove the body. He would have known what's happening, and he would sense our the hardest thing when training animals is to be neutral, because they can pick any emotion of you, happy or sad or anxious. So the hardest thing is to close yourself off completely neutral, and they can't read you, because they do pick you up that fast. They'll feel that you want them to go into the module right now. It's important. Why is it important? They will question you. They will ponder it. They will test you. They will challenge you. And if you're like, hey, I don't care if you go in, they'll say, sure, I'll go in. Right? So, but you don't want to set them up. You know, there's a lot of things, but they do. They do sense up a lot. That's why all this is important. All this is important. When you're doing a protest, I would say it's probably the hardest day on an animal. And I know you guys don't think that, but it's the hardest day on the animal because all the trainers are affected in their thinking and their concern, and they're all talking about the protest, and they're all talking about what's happening, and they're all talking about what's ever there. The animals are sensing. I'm not saying not do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right what they do. I just know that inside Captivity, there's a lot of people that can do some great good out there, and there's a lot of activists doing some great good out there. We've got to get all these people together. Yes, Barlow.
Do you think that Tilikum, from your experience with him as a young whale, do you think that Tilikum does miss Dawn? Dawn Bradshaw, that he is aware that she is not here any longer, especially after the brutal attack that he committed on her?
Whether he knows he is responsible, I can't go that far.
Correct.
I do know from personal experience working with whales and dolphins all over the world, they do know when you're going. There's something about you and with these animals that they pick up. And I always say anyone can train a whale, anyone can work with these animals, but not everyone's going to establish a great relationship with these animals. Not everyone's going to get as far in depth with these animals as you can. I used to have a lot of fun working with Haida and Biosa, these dominant killer whales. These things are so intelligent, and they're negotiating with you constantly. In the Blackfish, you'll hear it say, oh, the show was perfect. Whenever a killer whale was perfect, I was worried. That's a killer whale perfect is not a good day for me. And if they're too smart for that, it means they just want to get the job done, and they don't want to play around with you, and they want to get on to the next thing. So these animals are very. I actually left Biosa to move to Italy, and for 2 months later, she. So what is your legacy? This is what we all should be. Because I've been at this for 30 years. I was young when I started in the captive aquarium industry, and traveled the world, moved animals everywhere, consulted for some national aquariums. And I had to start to think, what's my legacy? My son Noah was going to grow up probably to catch the last blue whale on him. That's what I used to joke with him. He's 16 now, he's traveled everywhere around the world with me, and he's collected animals with me, he's seen animals in there. But you know what? Tilikum raised me up. I've got to learn that name from some natives. Kyukot also raised me up, because I said, what kind of legacy is that going to be? What kind of legacy is my son going to be if he's the last one catching the last whales? What is that going to do? Because a lot of us in the captive industry did believe that the wild was too harmed, too affected to be doing. Let's plan on what we're going to do in space. Let's plan how we move whales to Mars. Let's plan how we artificially inseminate them. Let's just keep them in big pools, and they'll always be alive. And so I had to go through all these questions and thoughts, and for my own son got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he, sorry guys, I went through this a few times. I'm glad it's a small crowd. When it's big, I'll finish crying. So he almost died 3 times last year, and so I spent some time playing with him over the years, the last couple of years when I came back from the South Pacific, and started saying, what is my legacy for you? What is my legacy for you with whales and all your skill sets? You're still going to be able to dive, you're still going to be able to go to the ocean, you're still outgoing, we're still going to be able to do all that wild stuff. What are we going to do with you? And imagine we were playing a video game one day, and we were playing this forgot which game it was, but following this story, and we arrived at this castle. And my son knew whose castle it was, and I played the same game with Noah. I watched him, helped him, was the second character and all, and I had no idea whose character that was, whose castle that was. And so it made me think, why does a video game give you so much satisfaction that you actually want to follow the story? And why can't we follow the story of 84 killer whales in the wild? Why can't we follow the story of Tilikum? Why can't we follow all these stories that are important? Why can we follow? And so it spun my brain onto, well, maybe it can. And being a trainer, I started understanding what video games do, and that self-reinforcing thing of accomplishing something and getting something done. That's what whales like. They love accomplishing things. They love getting things done and moving forward. So I said, okay, because as I'm not sure if all you know, some of you definitely know, I was the world's largest dolphin broker. I was responsible for collecting the most amount of dolphins in the world, and I was responsible for moving the most dolphins in the world. I supplied Dubai Aquarium with dolphins. They would never have dolphins in the Arab if I didn't start collecting wild. And I also moved dolphins to Singapore. Singapore would never have had new dolphins. And I was personally responsible for a lot of animals being moved to aquariums. So that's, yes.
So you had a change of mind, of heart after Tilikum left and maybe your son was born, and what made you go over to the Solomon Islands and pick up the 27 dolphins, which there
What
now...
started that?
Yeah, there's now
Before
4
that.
of them have already passed away at Resort
Yeah.
World Sentosa.
So what happened at the start of it was I was working in Italy, and we had a captive dolphin that came in with a broken jaw. And it was 37 years of age, and it was in Europe. It was worth €1 million. And at 37 years, because it was caught before CITES. So if you're anyone familiar with CITES, it's the Convention of Trade of Endangered Species. I can't simply move an animal because I want to move an animal. I actually have to have papers for it. I need convention papers. I need import permits. You know, there's a lot of work to be done here. There's a legal process that you follow. So I was in Europe, and I was consulting for their national aquarium, and we were fixing this animal's broken jaw. That's why it came into our aquarium, because it had a broken jaw. So we were fixing the broken jaw, doing all this work for it, and it was offered $1 million. So we were talking and discussing why it was worth so much, because it was coming in before CITES, et cetera, and so I started looking at where you could breed animals. Could you create a breeding colony? And plus at that time we were getting into the, a friend of mine calls this the Ronald McDonald of aquariums. It's when you get 40 people around a pool, get a dolphin to swim around you as fast as you can, and get another 40 people in these touch programs. And I actually had a big problem with these large touch programs as well, because one, it's not as intimate for the animals. Two, it's very hard on the animal because there's a bunch of people that they're sensing don't even want to touch. They're scared. The animal feels all that tension with 40 different people. It's not a good thing. So I wanted to create a base that I could have this vision. Why not get an island, have some dolphin family, breed some babies that can become captive born, can become second generation, can become third generation. So now we can supply aquariums in third generation. Remember, I believed it at those days, right? I was a farmer, I was a cowboy. That's what we do with cows, that's what we do with pigs. I'm not justifying it, that's where I was thinking. And so I found this country, Solomon Islands. And sure, most of you know about Japan and their killing of dolphins. Well, Solomon Islands actually been doing it longer and probably bigger. And not many people know about it. And they paddle out in their canoes and they go 10 miles offshore, and they bring these dolphins in with stones, and they run them up to the beaches, and they kill them. And they kill them for their teeth and their meat. Not like Japan, they don't kill them for market, they kill them just for trade. And they keep the teeth, and 1,000 teeth is a bride, so that's 10 dolphins for one bride. And their meat is exchanged for garden and water rights with the bush people. Because the people in this Solomon Island country is a country of 1,200 tribes. This particular tribe that kills dolphins actually lives on artificial islands, creates islands out of coral, and it lives on these islands. And so it has no water, it has no gardens. It lives on these islands in order to stay away from the mosquitoes and stay away from the bush people. So they use the bush meat to exchange, because the teeth are a currency and very delicacy. They retain the tooth as a sign of token and appreciation and of value, and they use it as currency and they exchange it. So I found out about Solomon's. I was going to go to Vanuatu. I was going to get some Japanese dolphins. As I was in Vanuatu, they offered me to collect dolphins in Japan. While I was there, someone said, hey, guess what? There's a country that kills them. So I went into the Solomon Islands. So yes, I did export dolphins, but in the 10 years I was there, they stopped killing dolphins. I think there was one hunt when I was there. So they never hunted. The fisheries estimated we saved probably 60,000 dolphins because they kill 5,000 dolphins a year in Solomon Islands. And they've just gone back to trade, killing them in 2011, I think. They just started after I left.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've got you on live here.
Yes.
Out to the public, and from Regina Turgeon, she asked, does he think that they, meaning I guess the orcas, would survive in a seaside sanctuary?
For sure. To think that a whale can't live in another body of water is crazy. And
Well,
that's all we're doing.
that's what the captivity industry, it's, you know, that's what they say, you know,
Well,
because
we
they
have
live
to
in the
revert it. We
chlorinated
have to
pool.
revert it back. This is why, well, you'll see it when I get into it with the hide. We started these animals in sea pens, right? Moby Dog got in the sea pen.
Right.
Everyone put these animals in sea pens. There's nothing. If we say a sea pen, the worst thing I ever heard was they can't live in sea pens because they'll die because the water's dirty. I said, buddy, we got a bigger problem than whales in captivity then, because if you're telling me I can't swim in the ocean because I'm going to die, we all should be scared. That's the Pacific Northwest. You know, it's just not factual. So yes, I do believe, and I actually think it's the way we should go. And there's lots of proof that they can't. No one, I don't think any captive expert would ever sit down with other captive experts and say they could never live in a sea pen. I think that would be very hard for someone who knew the animal. Maybe their spokesperson, maybe the marketing director, maybe their educational director, sure. But a trainer or everything, for sure they can. We all know that.
Plus, it's the money that they're losing if they go into this, you know, or
it's-
picking up more money because they have to dish out more money to keep that animal going, whereas, you know, the paying public, like at SeaWorld,
Right.
is
Well,
keeping them
the idea
afloat.
for what I'm talking about, what we lead in is that we got to get more models, man. We only have a few models of educating the public here. That's not enough. We got to get into some more models. So to get back into did I answer your Solomons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
thank you.
Okay. Did I answer you guys? I saw your face. I know it's brutal.
Yeah, well, so I was just wondering if you could talk about more of your turning point, because you said your son, he was growing up, and then he was having the health problems, or like, you know, the scares and stuff. So what?
That was for my idea after. What happened, my change of heart was Tilikum in 2010. I was collecting animals. I had animals in captivity, and I actually watched the Cove movie, and Louis said something about save the whales and one person could make a difference. I was having a frustrating time with the captive industry because guys like me, they string out to dry. We get all the flack and all the hits. It's the aquariums paying us that make us do this, but they ostracize us. So I was getting mad at that. I was getting mad that we weren't educating the public about the Solomon Islands because the country was willing to stop killing dolphins. I was talking with hunters and watching kids change. They were. And I was getting frustrated with some issues that happened with animals that were in captivity because of some activism issues and some paperwork issues and some of this bureaucracy, right, where these animals fall into the cracks. And it's not their choice to fall into it. And once you're getting into it, it's just too hard. So I was at Tilikum having it, and I said, this is enough. And I was about to separate Kobe and BT. And there were two, I'll tell their story at the end here, but first wild caught, captive born dolphin calf that I know of ever put together, only because I could. There's not many places actually get access to wild calves, but in a country that kills them, it's a bit different story. So I put this captive born that I had at 30-acre island, had a sea pen structure with the dolphins, and I had a baby born on the island and never been to the wild, and I introduced this captive to this wild, and the two moms, as soon as they got together, put the calves in the middle and looked like anything you see in the wild. And I said, wow, this is just instinctual. Where's all this coming from? Like, captive can't do this, captive can't do that. What do you mean? Should we at one time we thought wild couldn't be captive. Now we think captive can't be wild. Like, this is insane.
So if you can teach him to do a backflip
No
for a
kidding.
fish, I think you can teach him how to
Thank
go
you.
into it.
That's what I said to someone. Someone said, well, that sounds hard putting it back. I said, you know what sounded hard was going in a boat, going out to the sea, grabbing a whale, putting it on the boat, taking it to the airport, putting it on a plane, shipping it to Saudi Arabia, and in 3 months I'll get it to do whatever you want. That sounds hard. But that was what we did. So why are we suddenly limiting ourselves? And why is the conversation limited? And it's because we need more of these people out there, and they're out there. The people do approach me from the captive industry and say, hey, keep talking, we're with you, da-da-da. You know, there is, you know, if you imagine if you've been working with a species all your life in a box and you had a chance to go in the wild, wouldn't you go in the wild with those tigers? Yeah. That's what you, even, no matter what you believed in, right?
Last year, there were 338,000 tigers born in the United States of America. There were 3,700 left in the wild. I'm fighting the same battle you are.
Wow.
I'm fighting the same, very same, that's why I said.
So, yes, I know, that's funny, that's good. So I had to say, is my son going to be a catcher? Is my son going to grow up to be a better catcher than me? And I said, no, he's not. So I came up with Ocean Walls, and I came up with this vision and this idea from playing this video game. That's my son there, that's Noah. This is what I love. What we do here is we make people superstars. We make the kids superstars. We over have 500 kids in our kids club. We get their pictures up there. We get their faces up there. We take them on beach walks. We make them feel like the superstars, not the whales. And the reason is because the kids know way more than us. So something cute to watch here.
My favorite animal that lives in the ocean is a hermit crab. A shark. A dolphin. Turtles. Sea anemones. Dolphins.
My favorite thing about the ocean is all the different life.
The way how everything actually relies on each other.
I think it's just amazing that there's so many different animals that live in the ocean, even though it doesn't look like there's that much. And a lot of beautiful things are living in the water. Sometimes I swim in the ocean and I really love it. The thing I like most doing in around the ocean, in the ocean, is looking for rocks and shells. I love playing in the sand. It's important to protect the animals so the ocean is safe.
If we treat it like it's just like a giant garbage dump, future generations will never actually be able to see all of the awesome things that we can experience now.
My name is Nanny and I love the ocean. We love the ocean. We love the ocean. My name is Colleen and I love the ocean.
It's important for everyone to understand the state of the oceans by observing them every day. Wild Vision and Hillside Center through Ocean Walls allows us to bring the ocean through technology to people every day. That is the idea behind Ocean Walls, captivating people and keeping the wild free.
Yeah, so that was the vision. How can we create a big exhibit? How can I get a blue whale live on a screen somewhere? How can I get a domes? How can I get these animals that we can see and bring them to the public? And I believe that I not only did I collect and supply animals, but I also consulted for these aquariums. I know a lot of their business plans. I know a lot of their costs. I know a lot of their profits. I know a lot of the expense accounts. And I know the model that works. And I believe that this model can actually replace that model because the visitorship would match it on such a scale. If we build it to this scale, you could, as we will see, even. Because we should be working to empty the tanks and getting out into the wild so that we learn a lot for our future generations.
Yeah.
Because we've learned very little in the last 20 years.
Except how to make more money.
Yeah. Well, they're losing money at that now too. They're
Yeah,
even losing
yeah.
it. We all got to get a better thing. This was a great video someone created for me when they heard the idea, so I'd like to share it. So that's what I've been doing the last. That's what I've been working on since last 3 years here, and we'll just finish this. And then this now I'm going to announce what I'm going to be taking this to. Just got to get sparked here by the next video. Sorry, we're just going to run in a video because it didn't have my laptop, so we just have to wait for the pauses sometimes here. This is Ken Balcom's photo. If you ever know Ken Balcom, yeah, that's his photo. I love that, the whale photo.
If you're one of the 5 million visitors each year to the newly renovated Hillside Centre, well, you'll likely see it.
So we brought it to reality, as I said. That was a couple images. This is a local television show.
Installed ocean wall. The screen is 12 feet by 7 feet.
The same depth of the module. And he says it's massive, which is interesting.
Installed in partnership with a company called Wild Vision Edutainment, the first one of its kind in the country. Its creator is Chris Porter, a former dolphin dealer and killer whale trainer. And while Chris used to spend his life working with sea animals in captivity, today he's all about keeping them in the wild.
I came up with the idea last year, and from my years of experience in aquariums, I wanted to create an alternative to captivity. So I approached Hillside Centre, and they loved the concept, and we put together ocean walls.
Bentel Kennedy is the company that owns Hillside.
This is Canada's largest property developer in Canada, and they have shopping centres all across Canada, so we're excited to be working with them.
And we just really felt that we wanted something that was unique, and certainly something that was West Coast. The ocean wall sort of ticks all the boxes. Bentel Kennedy is very much about the environment, and they have a lot of programs on the national level. So it made real sense to us, and you know, to have the ocean wall now here at Hillside is a real treat. And there's interactive components, of course, for the kids.
What do you want to call the fishy?
Abby. She loves it. When we're not outside doing fun stuff, we come here on cold days, rainy days. The first thing she wants to do is come here, color. It's perfect. It's really popular.
We have a Sea Ranger Kids Club that we take them on adventures, whether they're down at the beach doing cleanups, whether they're out on the boats, whale watching, but really giving them a true feeling of what it's like to live on the West Coast and to be conservationists.
The technology for the ocean wall is supplied by iBoard, a Victoria-based tech business that specializes in on-screen technology for classrooms. And while the core of their business is overseas, Chris Porter wants to see his ocean wall in schools across Canada.
And so we actually would like to proceed with a school tour and start turning school gyms into aquariums and sporting arenas around the country. We can really make an impact on the wild and start using the wild as our aquarium and making sure our resources are protected. And that shift is happening all over with animals.
Now with 5 million people visiting the Hillside Centre each year, that makes for a huge audience for the seawall.
Anybody can send in their video. So if you're out on your boat or on the ferry and you've got some great footage, you can send it to us and we can put it up on the wall.
From Victoria's Hillside Centre, I'm James Green.
Yeah, we won the International Council of Shopping Centers Gold Award for cause-related marketing. We've had over 2 million views and over 300,000 people interact with the display in a short time. It is working, and we do have a lot of interest. We are working towards that school dome. We're paired up with actually a Storyville people out of Whidbey Island. This is actually Dolphin Project footage. That's Pete Zuccarelli there, just showing you the realm of possibility. I will be working to find Rick again and talk with him again. But this is going to skip the wrong window. As I said, we're getting into the dome for schools, and we're starting our Orca Rangers program. The Sea Rangers Club in the mall has over 500 kids, as I said, and we're embarking on a big plan to get out to as many people as we can.
Trapped inside the tanks.
I'm just gonna figure out how to skip this movie here.
Together, we can end this. Learn more and take action. Visit Dolphin Pro.
You guys ever see this video? Huh? Have you seen this? I just use this video just to show you how much stuff. I'm riding one of these in the Pacific Northwest. These things are fun. Anyone who's into water, you gotta get one of these. Especially if you have those behind you. My whole idea here is to show you how much we can do in the wild. That Ocean Wall Hillside Center, we support over 50 nonprofits. We take their footage, their videos that they have online, and give them a larger audience. If you have nonprofits or you are working on projects, we actually have the manatee, Save the Manatee footage up there from Florida. So it's a great avenue, and we're looking forward to expanding it. And the mall pays for the license of it. The public doesn't pay anything. The nonprofits don't pay anything to get all their footage up there and advertised. So it's a real win-win for everything. And better yet, no animals are ever caught. So it's a big change for sure.
I've always said that seeing animals we have a lot of people that come to our sanctuary. We do tours twice a week, public tours. And we always have a lot of people that come in there and say, oh my God, I've always just wanted to be this close to a tiger. It's a lifetime dream, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of our tours, whenever I've done them, is I've always turned around and I always say, especially if we have a tour full of a lot of kids, I always say, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for you to spend our tours or an hour and a half. I said, but to spend an hour and a half or 15 minutes at a zoo or 20 minutes at SeaWorld and an aquarium, I said, it's a lifetime experience for you. I said, unfortunately for these animals, it's their whole lifetime. And that's where I want you to stop and think outside of yourself for 5 minutes and think about this animal has to sit here in this property behind this cage forever.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that was one of the questions we had, right? So when I proposed this idea, I said, let's build an exhibit. And why can't we build it big enough to get a blue whale there? I think people will like it. And they're like, yeah, it's just like TV. It's a TV. We debate. And I said, no. How many people, you go to someone's house and they got a 60-inch TV? Everyone loves that, right? Better than looking on your phone. So what if it's a 100-foot screen? Isn't that better than, it's got to work. So we actually started it. And we have young, I don't have many photos or much video on it, but we have old, young kids kissing those screens, everyone interacting with the screens. They know it, they know it's those animals, and they are getting that connection, like you say they want from the live, but we're getting it. And even better is because the people are bringing their own wild experience in, we're getting that. There's a older lady there, I think she's 70, she keeps coming in, bringing her videos from the wild, and it's amazing, and she brings her friends down. And the wall was off for a week, and I went back and dealt with it and got it back on, and one of the cleaners said, thanks so much, because I hate coming to work when the whales aren't here. So it provides that ambience. It's in a food court, it's in a big area, so it is working. Anyone know who this whale is? Looks like Tilikum with his fin, but it's not. It's Haida, it's the original Haida. So this is what got me upset and said, I gotta get more public. A friend of mine from Sealand of the Pacific, this is Sealand of the Pacific, where Haida and Nuka, the module was up there. This whale was actually proposed to be released by this aquarium in 1980. That's too many years ago, okay? 1980 it was proposed to be released, let back into the wild. I have all the paperwork, I have all the correspondence back and forth. At the end of the day, Greenpeace and Sea Shepherd turned it down. Created enough controversy over this that this animal was never released. Now, the reason it wasn't released might have been a good idea because they wanted to catch a couple more as well. They wanted to catch 2, keep them for 5 years, let them go. But It was going to start with this animal in 1980 being allowed to see where it would go. And because we couldn't get our act together in 1980, this animal ended up dying in this pool, and Haida, Nuka, and Tilikum got purchased from Iceland, and Tilikum is now famous because of that. Because in 1980 we did not take the action or the effort or even the significance of what we refused here. This is what we have to change, and we have to get all those same people back together. We have to get all those same groups together working on what does that look like, so that what does the future look like for these whales with seabeds? Yes.
Well, I see them there in the marina, and that would probably be that they're so, the orcas are such an acoustic animal, that I would think that any time there was a engine started, would that affect them in their pools? No.
It's like wild whale watching. You know, if you talk to Ken Malcolm, who I respect a lot for his wild knowledge, he says, you know, it's the salmon the whales need. The boats are more of a distraction and a disturbance. They're at 360 views and that. These animals habitualize to everything. You know, I've rarely seen a killer whale scared, right? Like because they are that king, right? It's very hard to get them disturbed. And more you get is apathy, right? Like, I just give up. I'm just going to stay here. Like, this is so dumb. Or panic attacks. I've seen a lot of panic attacks. You know, you get that kind of stresses. You don't really get this. I don't live here. They know it. But it'd be like, yeah, I live here. Now I'm tired of this place. Now I'm tired of you. I'm tired of this food. I'm tired of everything. You know, that's more what happens.
Because I would imagine that if that was the case, then those killer whales, the S-pod and J-pod wouldn't hang around the boats. They'd stay out, away from the boats, if the boats were disturbing their hearing, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're going to see a little treat, or a little treat. Let's see if it's a treat. So why I believe that we can release animals, because I do know, because I've caught animals, and there is far easier work to be doing to release them. And I was actually offered the job of Keiko, ironically at the same time that I was offered to collect dolphins in the Solomon Islands by their government. And we all know what I decided to do. But I was offered the job before Colin Baird took it off to release Keiko. And I didn't accept it because at that time they didn't have a plan B. I had worked with some people that were on that project, and they told me the best thing for Keiko was to be looked after his whole life and to follow the boat and be fed. And figure what that looks like. And figure what walking him looks like. Figure what a long-term proposal looks like for Keiko to be fed and looked after. And I won't go into the politics, I won't go into who's right or what was right or who's served. That's up to us just to use. Keiko should be used as one example of one animal that proved to us how far we could go. So we gotta get further. Moby Doll proved that to us when we harpooned him and it still lived. So there's a lot more work that we could do. Moby Doll, if you're not familiar, is the first killer whale that was ever collected, and was actually collected to become a sculpture, used as a model for a sculpture, and it was harpooned off BC. And when they were towing it to Vancouver Harbor, it was still alive, and they kept it alive for I think 90 days. And during that time is when everyone figured out, wow, these things are smart. Wow, you can feed them. Wow, you can touch them. Wow, you can train them. So, yes.
I got another question for you.
Certainly.
They want to know do you believe the confinement of Medpool is the cause of the lung infection due to the lack of exercise and the confinement to a small space? This is probably referring to Tilikum.
Tilikum, yes. Tilikum and Haida actually would develop lung infections at the same time of year most of their life, and it is seen in other animals, and I have seen that in dolphins as well in certain times of year. So I'm not saying what it's related to, but I think it's a bit more complicated than just where they are. I think there's a lot of factors to it that Bahid would, and so would Haida, and Nuka pretty well the same time of year get sick, and it's around.
Do you think it's probably based on the fact that Tilikum is in Orlando, and these animals come from the Pacific Northwest?
Well, this would happen in BC too, right? This would
he's from Norway, but yeah.
This Haida is actually from BC, that's why he's so large.
But they'll come from much cooler weather. And my question is, they have to chill the water. So by chilling the water and having the outside being so hot, Wouldn't that be like us, you know, we can compromise and pick up pneumonia?
What I've learned with whales, they're so complex, I couldn't even fathom what, I think it could be a reason. I also think there is something that is environmental,
Yeah.
that seasonal as well. I do, because I did see it with captive dolphins. I did see it with dolphins around a certain time of year that, hey, like our flu season, right? I'm not saying whales have flus, I'm not an expert, but you know, there's more to be studied than one aspect.
Yeah, and they're out of their environment.
Orcas, haven't they spotted them in the Gulf of Mexico in the water?
Yeah, in Hawaii, they just was.
Thank you, they say.
Okay, so that's the futures of the orcas based on the past. Yes, we do need to get into sea pens. This is my whole thing. All of us should be talking sea pens, because guess what? Eventually, a bean counter at SeaWorld will figure out a sea pen doesn't cost that much to operate. And that should be, right now, unfortunately, everyone's going to have to deal with the mortgage on those pools. When you got $1 billion mortgage, and you got $5 million of assets of animals, unfortunately, that's what we're battling right now, is purely the economic model. Who's going to pay the bank if we move those animals out? And unfortunately, right now, the bank's looking like it's Arab, and that's just bigger pools. So we need to make sure that we keep working on a better solution here. That's why I'm here. And why do I propose sea pens? Why do I propose? Yes, because I did collect a lot of animals, and I do believe that it's very easy to put them back, and I believe that if we had enough animals to select, that some would choose to go and be very wild. And yes, some may choose to stay and have human interactions, as we've seen at Monkey Maya and in other parts around the world with other cetacean species. Isn't that a better future for my son? Yes, it is. And that's what I'm working for, and that's what I think all of us here should work for, is what's our best future for our kids. I'm 46 years old, that's 1980, that's 36 years ago we proposed to release the whale, and we still can't decide if we could do it or not, even with Keiko already being out there. So that means that we're stopping this. The whales aren't stopping this. It means us people are stopping, and we have to go past. And why I know it's possible goes back to that story of Kobe and Viti, those two mother and calf I put together. And I did put them together, and guess what? Kobe, who was born in the pool, showed Viti how to travel everywhere around that pool, how to go through gateways, how to go into the other side of the lagoons, how to follow the boats, how to follow this. And Viti at the other side taught him how to live within amongst his family. And at the end of the long story, this captive born eating live fish for the first time. It's no big deal. It's not very hard. Here's some live fish in the thing. I took this video to say, here's my first time ever feeding a captive born dolphin, a live fish. I broke it the first time, get it quivering a bit, feed it a dead one. Now you're watching me drop it out. It's alive a bit. There it starts sort of alive a bit. Now it's moving, trying to find it. This isn't rocket science, as you said. Making them do flips is a lot more complex. This is proof. This is a captive-born dolphin eating live fish for the first time of its life without too much drowning. So we need to build up on that, and we need to build up onto what it looks like. This other part of this video is this same baby captive dolphin going out into the wild. This is a hunter, one of those hunters that did work with me. He didn't hunt anymore after working with me. A lot of people didn't hunt after. Here he is feeding this baby and getting ready to take it out into the wild. Now this is some stuff that still, if you go to an International Marine Animal Trainers Association conference, is earth-shattering that we're dealing with these animals in the wild, and that we're taking animals from captivity and moving in the wild. This is very easy stuff. This guy's a hunter, he's fed the animal follows. This is a secondary pen we had here. I designed this place that we could actually move animals from one harbor into the other harbor into the wild, so that they would understand that it was all their big pool, and then let them decide at the end of the day where they chose.
Yeah, that's how Rick O'Barry has returned a lot of the dolphins back to rehab.
You give them the choice.
Yeah, and you give them the choice. And
my only expansion on that is what happens when they don't choose. That's where we're still neglecting a bit. That's where this entertainment, the education, the research part can start coming up for these animals that say, you know what, I'm not going to leave you. And those animals can start becoming our future to teach other animals to go out.
Yeah, in Korea, Jen Powell was
Yeah,
just,
that was perfect.
that
Those
was just,
Yeah.
you know, she jumped over and kept
Gone,
going, and
yeah.
now she came back with a calf.
Exactly. We're getting a lot of occurrences with, so we do have enough facts now. So at the end of all this, you're gonna have to decide if he's your friend, an outcast and killer, what that means to you and what you can do for him. I'm telling you and I'm sharing with you what I'm doing because I have done some wrong things for animals. But I stand here for my son and for Tilikum to show that we can do something better. And I thank you all for coming here to believe in what we can do for these animals. And yet I ask you to spread the word. I have some brochures. Oh, I think I forgot the bag. Maybe. Anyhow, I'll get some brochures to someone about the Worker Rangers program. We're doing a dorsal fin program, wooden dorsal fins into schools. The kids are going to paint the dorsal fins so they can identify the killer whales. By the dorsal fins, they can identify themselves. And we're doing the dome tour. So there's a lot we can do down here. There's a lot we can do everywhere. And I thank you for, just can't remember how it's important that we do something better. We don't want to be here another 36 years and say, wow, we got 2 whales up there. You know, that we got to do way more than that. This is Orca Safe. Orca Safe is hashtag Orca Safe, hashtag Ocean Walls. You can find anything about me. I will talk to anyone. I will answer any questions, and I will be always open book to whatever's going to help these animals. I ask that you help me by passing the story on, that there is something more we can do. I ask that when you are having an argument with someone that supports captivity, that you change your conversation to what can we do, not what we have done. If I kept here talking about what I have done, you guys would never show it, right? And Noah would never have showed up. And Tilikum would still have no hope for his offspring. I actually really believe that we can take captive-born animals and put them back into the wild, and that we can put them into large sea pens that can attract a lot of people, and we can have a better show structure. And I say show in the way of educational show, and a better showing of these animals that would produce a better financial model, that would produce more resources for the wild. Because when it comes down to the fact the wild's not getting paid, and because the profit column for the animals in these parks is the last thing on the list. It's at around $1 or 25 cents on the dollar, or some places are down to 5 cents a dollar. That really goes out to research, really goes out to education, really goes out to conservation. We need to create models that do more than that. I thank you for your time. I'm going to open it up to questions, and while we're answering questions, I'm just going to run some Ocean Walls footage here. It's about 10 minutes of some of our best stuff here, and it gives you an idea of what we're doing as far as going out to the public and getting people together, getting people to come with their footage, getting people to come with their solution, and getting people around the table. So thanks for coming around my table today. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to go see Tilikum tomorrow, and I thank you guys for giving me the power and strength to start this talk. I'm glad it turned out this way, because I still felt some emotion through it, which I still have to deal with. But I do accept responsibility for what I've done, and I'm working through it. But thank you for making it very sociable and very easy to talk with you, and allow me to talk louder and stronger as I go forward.